it was like a dream. I thought I was sleeping. But there were a couple of moments during that experience that I thought, boy, this is a long dream. You know, I can't wake up. I experienced some very extreme nightmares, I would guess.
At first, I was terrified.
I mean, you can't stop this virus, and I think that's something we need to realize. The shelter in place was to allow us to buy time to get prepared, but it wasn't about stopping this. You cannot just by shelter in place stop this virus. The moment you open, it's going to come in.
This virus is not going anywhere, and we're going to have to live with it.
When our governor, Brian Kemp, announced that we were going back, we were kind of on the forefronts of that. And we all thought it was a little soon because the numbers were not declining. They were actually going up.
Trying to stop this virus, I tell a little bit to people, it's a little bit like trying to stop the wind.
It's transmitted by droplet mostly. I mean, when you sneeze, when you talk, when you spit, you can excrete virus in the small droplet that falling in that. These droplets usually don't stay very long in the air, but fall on surface. And if someone touched that surface very soon after the droplet arrived, he may be infected, especially if he's helping the virus by touching something and putting the finger in the nose, in the mouth, or rubbing his eyes. The people that are going to be infected, that the people that are in close contact, usually the family, the healthcare worker, obviously, if they don't have any protection. Family also the same, but it's difficult to have protection when you're in the daily life. And then when people are sick and going outside, shopping, entertaining, whatever, they can infect people they close by if there were no protective equipment.
I asked God, please take me. I cannot deal with this anymore. Just take me. I'm done. I'm through. But the nightmare will continue.
Before COVID-19 hit, we were outside with our congregants 5 days a week.
COVID-19 has seriously impacted our world as a community of faith.
We had morning prayer and coffee and donuts on Mondays and Wednesdays. We did a foot clinic, and when the pandemic hit, we immediately had to make some shifts. So early on, we shifted our worship service so that there was no longer communion, thinking that that was the safest way to keep folks safe, was just by not having that shared common cup and bread. And then a week later, it became clear to us that even that was not going to be enough to keep folks safe.
It's a time of uncertainty, but especially to communities of faith. And I thought the closure of places of worship as ordered by the state or by the federal government was good, obviously, but we were not prepared to sort of serve the people spiritually as effectively. We're now catching up onto the going on e-platform and all that stuff.
And so we no longer have a worship service where we sing and pray and read scriptures. Instead, we share lunch together.
We were caught off guard. We did not expect that there will be a time where the houses of worship will not be open, and counseling and helping people who are spiritually struggling or religiously struggling or any other ways, because we also have people who have different needs. Communities of faith and places of worship they contribute much more than just a theological help or theological infusion to communities. It's a social place as well. It's a spiritual place. It's where people bond together. They get to know each other. They feel better. One is down, one is up. Sort of that positive contribution. That's all missing due to COVID. So it took us some time to catch up to e-platforms to try to serve the needs, but we're still not reaching the amount of people we used to reach. This place used to house about 700 people on Friday, let's say, and on different shifts of prayers. As you've seen, because we're following the social distancing rules and all that, even though we're offering 3 times of prayers, but about 1/3 of that comes nowadays.
It's hard to practice social distance because we humans tend to like to be close to each other, right? We like to be in connection with each other, and therefore this is almost against our nature, right? And I think that's really hard.
We need to be socially closer than we were, yet physically distant. That's very important because social distancing, we're going to end up having bigger problems than just a virus, you know, with depressions and anxieties and all that. We need to bond together again as humanity.
How do you bring your acquaintance, your family, your friends together to share with you that moment, right? And this social distancing is precisely about the opposite, right? And I think that's why it's so counterintuitive, it's so counterproductive, so hard. It's not easy.
Now I want to move the forward chain. It's on your no, the other one, yeah, that one toward your side, yeah.
I'm going to lose.
Yeah.
From here to here.
Okay, make me a king. Yeah.
I move from here to here.
I want to move the king that's in the second line. One forward.
I move from here to here.
Yeah. And I want to move that one. I just moved ahead one more.
And this is going to eat you.
That's fine. Now I need her.
And now it's again a tie.
It's the king against the king.
No. No, actually, who is moving now?
It's a tie.
No, who is moving now? Which turn is it?
Dad.
Then Dad, no, it's a tie, it's a tie.
It's a tie.
It's a tie. Good job, guys. Have a good night.
This whole experience that I've been through recently has really made me realize that not only that life can change in a matter of minutes, but also it has been a humbling experience. Whatever you have and you think you're always going to have might not be there the next day. I started feeling progressively worse. It took about 4 or 5 days where I felt it, day after day I felt worse, and I think the worst symptom was fatigue, and then by the 4th day was difficulty breathing, and that's when I started to get scared. And after a sleepless night without being able to breathe properly, we decided, let's go to the emergency room. It was 1 second immediately, and when they were taking me away, I just turned around and looked at my wife, and it's like saying goodbye quickly. I couldn't even kiss her or anything. They just took me, and from that moment on, it's like, okay, when am I going to see her again? I don't know. My wife and I went together. We arrived at 6 in the morning, and they checked our temperatures, and they asked our, how do I feel, and the symptoms that we had, and they separated us. They put me in an isolated room. Then immediately I got like 5 or 6 doctors. They are all asking me questions, checking if I had good reasoning and if I had good reflexes. And from that moment on, they put me up in a room, and maybe a day passed, and then by the nighttime, I don't know if I fell asleep or I just passed out. And from that moment, I was gone.
The coronavirus has exposed a lot of the issues in this country, a lot of the problems. The attack rate has been particularly high among ethnic and racial minorities, and that's a way to also say among the poor, right? People in racial and ethnic minorities, many of them are actually in the front lines. They live in places. I, for example, recently took care of a person who lives with his wife, his 2 daughters, and their 2 husbands, and their children. They all live in a 3-bedroom apartment. Each family has 1 bedroom, but it's very hard. If one person gets infected, everybody else in that household is going to get infected.
Some people have the best health care in the world, in the US. Most people don't have the best health care in the world, and some have no health care at all, and a lot of people don't have. So it's obvious that going to the hospital costs a lot of money, and some people cannot afford it.
The number you've dialed is not answering. Please try later. आपके मिलाए हुए नंबर से जवाब मौसूल नहीं हो रहा।
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम मैम, मैंने पूछना था आपका क्लिनिक खुला हुआ है? अच्छा मैम, मेरा थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम था, अगर प्लीज़ आप सुन सकती हैं तो। मैम मैं ना मेरा 38 वीक चल रहा है और मैं थोड़ा मुझे लगता है कि मैं लेबर में हूँ। मैं एक्चुअली KRL हॉस्पिटल में ही जाती हूँ, वहाँ पे मेरी डॉक्टर है, डॉक्टर बुशरा। तो मैम मेरा 2nd बेबी है और उन्होंने मुझे अब एंड में आके ये बोला है कि जी बेटा आपका C सेक्शन होना है और आपके पास और कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है। तो मैम मेरी आधी से ज़्यादा जी मैम पहला भी C सेक्शन से ही हुआ है और अब बीच में 2 साल का गैप आया है बस। अच्छा मैम, लेकिन वो ये कह रही हैं कि जी आप अब मुझे एंड टाइम पे बता रही हैं कि आपका यूट्रस जो है वो रिट्रोवर्टेड है, तो नॉर्मल डिलीवरी हो नहीं सकती। तो मैं चाहती मैं अगर आपको चेक करवा लूँ और अगर एक नॉर्मल डिलीवरी ट्राई ले लूँ। मैम 12 बजे तक मैं आ जाऊँ आपके पास? अच्छा मैं फिर ठीक है मैम, मैं अभी आती हूँ। ओके, अल्लाह हाफिज़। आप भी पहले जल्दी से
ऊपर नाक के ऊपर वाली साइड पे, ऊपर की तरफ रखो। हाँ ऐसे, ये देखो इधर। ये उतारना नहीं है। चलो इसको कवर कर लो।
Some people have health insurance, some don't, and health insurance cover or not covering. So people are sometimes afraid, and in most of the case of COVID, the disease is not that bad that people really need to go to the hospital, so they stay at home. Or they go to work because they have no choice.
I think sheltering in place is it's a privilege, it's luxury, right? I mean, those of us that have a home, those of us that can telework, but you know, if you're somebody working in a grocery store, you can't telework, right? If you're somebody working at a you know, cleaning here in the hospital, you can't telework, you have to come to work. And therefore you're more likely to get exposed, and therefore you're more likely to get sick.
So that increased the number of case in the US and also increase the transmission, the potential transmission in the US.
We have huge health inequities in many diseases, HIV, diabetes, hypertension, and I think a lot of it is driven by access, by poverty, by education, and so wealth and income in this country have been, we know for a long time there's been increasing disparities between the haves and have-nots, and I think COVID is just showing us how important that is.
And that's one of the big problem here is the way the health system is set up, is that if you don't have a job, usually you don't have a health system. If you change job, you change health system. If you have already condition, or if your health system is not that good, is not covering everything, so people in the priority put the health below some other priority that they have. And some do that because they think they're young and nothing gonna happen to them ever. And some because they don't have a choice. They have a family to feed and do that. The bill is tremendous. But how much cost a F-16 or F-35 or for the price of fighter jet, you can do a lot of things. And that depends where the priority are. If the priority have to have more F-15, well, the population, but that's where the population should set up what the priority is and should vote.
Oh, that's why they got that sign.
We're a very individualistic society, and I think you wear a mask to protect yourself, but you also wear it to protect others. So I think there's a sense of individualism. There is that sense of bravado you talked about, of nothing is going to happen to me. But at the same time, Americans are also some of the most giving individuals and the most caring individuals. So I think you have a contrast of those two things, right? And I think we need to, I mean, if I've seen something incredibly positive in this epidemic is the society response and how people have rallied to produce masks for hospitals and how people have rallied to provide support and bring meals to hospitals and how people have really offered help and support. There's that one side, but there's also that other side. We've seen some of the worst and some of the best of individuals come out, and hopefully the best will win. Hopefully people realize that we need to all do our part and all work together to get out of this mess.
Hey.
Corona. Now this is a very serious business for us. Na mimi naona ni vyema tuhakikishe kwamba at least kila mtu ako safe. Na nyinyi mtusaidie stameni na tuendelee kufanya maneno. Kama sasa wewe huna mask, hebu unaona sasa lazima ukuwe na mask, si na unaweka kwa mfuko kwa nini? No, you must be very serious. You see, everybody must fight corona.
Hii ni kutupwa, hii
ya kutupwa, chukua hii na make sure that you tell everyone. Hapa tunapeana mask kama ziko na watu wavae. Serikali inataka watu watunze sheria. Hii ni about the behavior change jameni. Yes, afande. Hii ni part of the behavior change.
Vijana yako wawili wako kwa hii gari.
Sasa isimeisha na nitaleta kesho, hakikisha afanye kesho.
Nipatie jakona hii.
Patie wewe, lakini wewe tutakutana na wewe ndio unaendesha watu. You know we have the risk of spreading this thing. Tumia mask. Na wewe una mask, si ndio? Hapana, ingia kwa hii compound kama una mask. Na wale nitawaletea. Sasa wewe nitakupatia mask huko naye. I think it is right. Yes, be like him. Unaona wewe? Namna hiyo kama hii, that's what I want. Sasa unaosha, naona kama kuna ujuzi, unaosha ndani kabisa. Yes, we have, it is not a loving matter. We are very serious if everyone obeys the rules. Sasa na maji tena imeisha hapa. Karibu tumefanya kila saa. Sasa nao sisi tunawahudumia, hata wewe mzee. Hakuna songa mita moja, 1 meter.
Mita moja.
Yes. Unajua nini kitu mnafanya? Unapata mtu wako mahali na unasonga huko.
Nipe kifunguo.
Ngoja. Sasa wewe uone sisi tunanawa mikono. Nawa mkono. That's the first standard.
Sasa hii ndio nimetoka kunawa mkono.
Ndio nasikia wa Kenya. Unaona hii tabia? Hata sasa ndio nimetoka kunawa. Na sisi tunasema every time.
Moja si bure, lazima hii keki ikatwe. Keki gani tena? Gift lazima kwa pampas.
Nikata mabwana wakachukua vijana wadogo.
Ndio unanichukia haya.
Nakuchukua lazima.
Keki buyu mungu hapa.
Hii job itakuwa ready by when? Ni documentary.
Wewe
Kuna mask?
Nikitoa tenje ama icheki. Nice. Ustae. Niambie. Action au usanii? Action twende. Nice. Hebu kiasi. Pole tu. Cheki mtaani. Cheki around.
Wazi.
Ajo. Nice.
Hakuna ile.
Ni cheki. Nice. Haya, acha nirudie tena.
Tulikuwa tufanye picha.
Wearing a mask is quite important because it protects several things. It protects you to create a cloud of droplet if you're sneezing, but it protects also you against you is if you touch something, you bring your finger in your mouth or in your nose or you bring your eyes, like I said, and you can be infected. So it's dual protection.
We see people not wearing their masks. We see people very relaxed. They get close to you. And I just want them to follow the rules, follow the advices that the CDC and the health organizations are saying. I think that is critical. I realize that the way things are going, there will be a second wave. And I just don't want to experience this again. And I don't wish it on anyone. I know there's a lot of people with their immune systems compromised, with poor health conditions, older population, that I don't want to see them suffer. So if everyone pays attention and wears their mask, it's not, you don't suffer by wearing a mask. I know it's a small inconvenience to live through, but you and your family will be much better if you do so. That's all I really want to convey.
Now there is a lot of type of mask. There is some that are used usually in healthcare setting or laboratory that called the N95 in the US because it blocked 95% of particles of a certain size. But also there is the cloth regular mask that people can make at home, which are not blocking everything, but blocking most of the droplet and also protect you against you.
But when the pandemic hit, it became clear that sure, we could not do worship services, but to not provide food would ultimately not only be a disservice, but it would actually be harmful to people who are living on the streets, because we're one of few people who served food on Sundays. So we went from serving 80 lunches on a Sunday to about 150 during the pandemic because the need was just so incredibly great.
My name is Hugh and I live in Athens, Georgia. I'm a chef who runs restaurants in Athens and Atlanta. We'd set up a pretty elaborate system of building boxed lunches, and then we borrowed a van from a friend of mine who runs a car dealership, and we go to the Athens Community Council on Aging, we go to Latinx communities in trailer parks, we go to an amazing organization called the Action Network in Athens, which gets foods to lower income African American people mostly living in housing projects. So we rely on community activists within the area to do that. Then we also go to St. Mary's Hospital, we go to Athens Regional Hospital, we do first responders, we do police stations, we do anywhere where we see an impact, where people have asked that their community be helped. Nourishment is this overarching idea of bringing emotion and comfort to people with nourishing food and nutritional food. So nourishment provides what restaurants are meant to be wherever you're bringing that food. It's producing food that shows that it was produced with a sense of empathy and compassion and understanding and care. And something that an MRE can't do, or a ration or something like that. Between Empire State South and 5 and 10, we've probably served about 55,000 meals in the 3 months to people who need it. And whether there's a pandemic or not, there's always need within a community. So we'll continue doing it in one way, shape, or form for the foreseeable future, and I don't think we'll even stop there. I think that this has opened our eyes to the fact that there's always people in need.